Sorry we're late. We were on the floor and we just couldn't get here. So we'll start with approval of minutes. Has everyone had a chance to look at the minutes from December 11th? Representative Sawyer.
Move adoption of the minutes.
There's a motion on the table for the adoption of minutes. Do I have a second? A second by Senator Warren. Is there any discussion? If not, all those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Minutes are passed. I don't know why I was sitting here. This problem. All right. Then we will go ahead and get started with, why am I losing everything? The Department of Agriculture. Please come up and introduce yourself. Thank you for coming to committee.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. My name is Austin Vincent, and I'm a staff attorney for the Kansas Department of Agriculture. With me today, I have Meat and Poultry Program Manager Jeremy Schooler and Field Inspection Supervisor Mike Pierce, who are also available for questions. I will be addressing the proposed amendments to existing regulations, KAR 416-1A and 416-1C, and the revocation of existing regulation KAR 416-129A for the administration of the department's implementation of the Kansas Meat and Poultry Inspection Act. This effort has been a multi-year effort, culminating in the crafting of the Kansas Meat and Poultry Inspection Code 2024. These regulations are authorized by several statutes, KSA 65-6A18, which directs the Kansas Department of Agriculture to adopt rules and regulations to implement standards for certain defined terms, KSA 65-6A20, which directs the Kansas Department of Agriculture to adopt rules and regulations concerning the examination and inspection of livestock, domestic rabbits, and poultry. KSA 65-6A25, which directs the Kansas Department of Agriculture to adopt rules and regulations prescribing the sanitary conditions under which establishments shall be maintained. KSA 65-6A30, which directs the Kansas Department of Agriculture to adopt rules and regulations necessary for the efficient execution of the provisions of the Act and not more stringent, restrictive, or expansive than required by federal law. And KSA 65-6A44, which directs the Kansas Department of Agriculture to adopt rules and regulations for the proper enforcement of the Act and exemption of certain operations from inspection or other requirements. KDA's regulation currently adopts numerous federal regulations by reference under KAR 416-1C to accomplish these authorities. The proposed regulation here is to simply adopt the document titled the Kansas Meat and Poultry Inspection Code 2024, which is based primarily on the regulatory structure of the Federal Food Safety and Inspection Service found in Subchapter A and E of Title IX of the Code of Federal Regulation as our own, whereas the current regulations incorporate these federal regulations by reference. Yes, ma'am.
I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Oh, sorry.
Are you just reading from, I haven't looked, so I just wondered if you were just reading what we already got.
No, ma'am, I have this prepared. There is some from our EIS, just to keep it simple.
My interruption, thank you.
No, you're good. And the next is stuff that you don't have. In order for the Kansas Department of Agriculture to receive federal funding for the KDA Meat and Poultry Inspection Program, KDA is required to adopt these requirements at least equal to that of the USDA's federal inspection program. That is pursuant to 21 U.S.C. 661. KDA was careful to consider the state standards in relation to these federal standards when crafting the Kansas Meat and Poultry Code and regulations that adopt it. Through this process, the regulations are to be adopted pursuant to the standards that are not more restrictive than the federal standards as set out under KSA 65-6A30, while still being sufficient to allow participation in the FSIS cooperative agreement. KDA circulated information regarding these proposed amendments or updates to the Meat and Poultry Inspection code to the Kansas Farm Bureau, Kansas Livestock Association, Kansas Restaurant and Hospitality Association, the Kansas Meat Packers Association, and all current licensees who have email on file. To this date, there have been no objections nor comments raised. We will be hosting our public hearing regarding the proposed amendments on February 26th, 2025, and notice of such was published in the Kansas Register on December 19th, 2024. Before I end, I do want to thank Senator Tyson for questions that she provided the Department of Agriculture before the hearing today and gave us the opportunity and worked with us on a few of the concerns that she had and questions that she had. So I wanted to say thank you and that we appreciate that opportunity. And so with that, again, thank you for the opportunity to appear, and I will now stand for questions.
All right, thank you so much. Are there any questions? Not seeing any. I appreciate your being here. Thank you.
Well, thank you, and thank you for my first J car.
It's not very painful. Yeah, that's right. There's just a few that are painful. Okay. Then it looks like we can just go ahead and move on to the Kansas State Corporation Commission, and I don't have your name. I guess right here. Hassan Latif. Thank you. Welcome to committee. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Madam Chair and committee members. I am Hassan Latif. I'm a litigation counsel for the Kansas Corporation Commission, and I'm today representing the Transportation Division of the KCC. The proposed updates to KAR 8243H would allow the state to adopt a recent federal rule 49 CFR 392.15. You have my written testimony, so I'll just briefly summarize the change. Updating this regulation was a request by the Kansas Highway Patrol to allow law enforcement to be able to halt drivers that have a commercial driver's license and are listed as prohibited in the Federal Drug and Alcohol Clearinghouse. A driver is listed as prohibited in the Federal Drug and Alcohol Clearinghouse if they have refused or failed a controlled substance or alcohol test and have not yet completed the return to duty process. And so if a driver, there's a loophole in that if a motor carrier does not check the Federal Drug and Alcohol Clearinghouse, they may not know that their driver is prohibited, or if a driver knows that they're prohibited, they may open their own motor carrier shingle and then try to operate without checking those rules. So this allows the Kansas Highway Patrol to have a clear citation at roadside when they do roadside inspections of commercial motor vehicles. They would check the Drug and Alcohol Clearinghouse for that driver, and if they determine that driver is prohibited because they have either failed or refused a controlled substance or alcohol test, they would be able to place them out of service at roadside. And this would benefit the motoring public and also gives one more additional tool for law enforcement to use to keep drivers who are prohibited from operating. And with that, I have our Transportation Division Director, Mike Hamey, here as well, so he can answer any technical questions you may have. But with that, I'm open to questions.
All right, committee, are there any questions? I do have one. What is the, if they're caught, what is the citation? How much is the citation?
For using a prohibited driver, I believe, do you know how much it is?
So if they're placed out of service, I believe the citation civilly, I'm sorry.
Would you introduce
Yes, I will.
yourself first, please?
Thank you, Madam Chair. My name is Mike Hamey. I'm the Transportation Director for the Kansas Corporation Commission. I believe, I'm not sure what if they're issued a notice to appear would be through district court, but if it's a civil fine, I believe it would be $250.
All right, thank you. Are there any other questions? You got off light too today, Mr. Latif. Thank you for being here. All right, committee discussion and comments on proposed rules and regs. Are there any discussion points or? I'm not seeing a lot. So I would say, without anything else, this meeting is adjourned. Thanks for being here.